This weekend, Aquaman hits theaters. That means today we're going to stop and rank all 6 DCEU films from the worst to the best. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Chandler, and I started this channel essentially because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place, and consider clicking that subscribe button to join the community here. Also, with that in mind, go ahead and join me down in the comments section, share your ranking of the DCEU movies, and one final thing before we get started, if you want one of these lovely I Talk Movies Too Much shirts, you can pick that up in my merch store. Also, you can pick up a number of the other shirts that I wear in my videos. If you use the promo code down below, before Christmas, you can get 30% off your order. With that said, let's get started. Coming in last place is Suicide Squad. Now, I respect the fact that the WB wanted to do something very different right out of the gate, very early inside of the DCU. I also think the cast and the characterizations are mostly really good, and the cast as a whole has great chemistry with one another. The big problem here is that the story itself and the storytelling are shockingly bad. Given all the rumors that David Ayer was only given 6 weeks to write the script, and then they did massive reshoots, and then they brought external people in to recut the movie last minute, it's tough to know whether you should blame the script, David Ayer, the studio, the editing. You just don't know. If you think about it, the first 20 minutes of the movie is voiceover exposition telling us who the characters are. The first action sequence in the movie isn't until an hour into the film, and the movie keeps repeating the same beats. There's 3 different helicopter crashes. There's 2 different rescue operations to get Amanda Waller. These are really bad signs for a story. But whoever's to blame for the story problems here, it's an utter mess. It's a real shame that the cast and characters weren't given a better movie. But for all my complaints here, I'm actually pretty optimistic that a Suicide Squad 2 still has the potential to be really good. Coming in 5th place is Justice League. Now, I went into this movie just expecting a fun time with my favorite superhero team and my 2 favorite superheroes. Unfortunately, what I got was one of the most painfully mediocre films I have ever seen. Now, I didn't hate the movie. I enjoyed the interactions between the Justice League themselves. It moves quickly. It's never boring. However, they delivered a fairly simple invasion storyline that looked and felt off to me. The actual look of the film feels overly processed and color corrected. And you can see this in the differences from the footage that's in the trailers to what's in the film. They radically changed the color scheme of certain scenes in the movie. It's also distractingly obvious which scenes are Whedon reshoots, both because of the dialogue as well as the look. The main villain was about as dull and generic as a space conqueror can be, and the movie in general just feels very messy and disjointed for such a straightforward plotline, which is what you expect from a movie with 2 directors. Now, I could be more forgiving of all of this if the whole movie didn't feel like it was written, directed, and edited by committee. There's no unifying vision or style. There's just mediocre superhero stuff. But it's in focus. As this is my favorite superhero team, while this isn't a terrible movie, it is one of the biggest disappointments. In 4th place is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I actually really enjoyed this movie. Now, I fully understand why a lot of you either think it's a disappointment or a total abomination, but for me, it mostly works. For all of its problems, I really appreciated that this was a film that had actual ambition and tried to explore ideas. They created a world where the events of the previous film had actual consequences. And through this film, we see what the Man of Steel did to the people of this world. And as for the action, Snyder does a great job. It's all handled with his typical visual flair. But unfortunately, the plot and Luthor's scheme are way too complex and convoluted. It also feels like it's trying to be 3 different movies. The first one is a Man of Steel sequel that's exploring how people would respond to Superman. The second one is the Batman v Superman movie, where Batman actually kind of outshines and steals the focus away from Superman. And the third one is a Justice League setup movie. Now, any 2 of these plot lines probably would have worked, but with all 3, it's just too much. It's also awfully grim and cynical cynical for a movie about a superhero whose family symbol means hope. For me, the good definitely outweighs the bad, but it's really frustrating to see a movie that's both so close and so far away from brilliance at the same time. Real quick before I give you my top 3, remember to share your ranking down below in the comment section. Which ones do you love, which ones do you hate, and why? Also, after this video, check out this playlist up above with my other DCEU rankings. If you enjoy this video, there's something else in there that you'll love. Kicking off the top 3 is Aquaman. James Wan decides to embrace the silliness of Aquaman, and the end result is the most fun film in the DCEU. It also moves at breakneck speed from an origin story to a movie about kingdoms and thrones to a globe-trotting relic hunting film to a movie about big sea monsters battling each other, and all of it is just a blast. And a big part of what makes it work is the cast, who just fully embrace the movie that they are in. Mamoa in particular feels like this is the part that he was born to play, as a guy that just loves fun adventures himself. Now, the movie can be a little bit corny at times, and some of the humor and dialogue fall flat. And being that the plotline revolves around relatives battling for the throne of a secret kingdom, and they get involved in ritual combat for the throne, and the villain wants to wage war on the rest of the world, there's more than a few very specific plot points that were in Black Panther 10 months ago. Now, I'm not saying that they intentionally copied Black Panther, and I'm aware of the comic book roots of these plot lines, but another movie in this genre had these same plot points this year. But even though some of it was familiar, I thought it was a great time at the movies. Our runner-up is Wonder Woman. When I first heard that they were making a movie about an Amazonian goddess who flies around in an invisible jet, swings a magic lasso, and dresses in a skimpy swimsuit that looks like the US flag, I thought this was way too campy for them to be able to pull it off. But that's why I talk about movies instead of making them, because boy was I wrong. Patty Jenkins crafted a movie that has great action, ideas to explore, characters that you actually like, and a witty sense of humor. From the thrilling score to the stylized action, the movie is just packed with energy and entertainment. Gal Gadot's irresistible mix of charm and confidence as well as innocence makes for a compelling lead that mixes perfectly with Chris Pine's steadfast character and humor. And more importantly, they just have amazing chemistry on screen. Unfortunately, the third act isn't quite as strong as the first two. Now, Chris Pine's final moments are great, but the Wonder Woman side of things takes a bit of a strange turn. It gets overly talky and it starts to lose momentum right when things should be getting most exciting. But these are just minor issues with a great film that goes back and forth for my top spot in the DCEU. But today, coming in first place is Man of Steel. Zack Snyder's reimagining of Superman took me several viewings to kind of settle in on what I thought about the film. It abandoned several of the traditional elements about both Clark Kent as well as Superman, so on first viewing it can be a little bit off-putting and jarring. But for me, it's a film that I respect and enjoy a little bit more each time I view it. As I started to accept that this was a reimagining of Superman, it became a film I like to explore more and more. Hans Zimmer delivers a fantastic score, probably my favorite of his, which adds so much emotion to the film. Henry Cavill provides a very different take on the character that's both shredded and a lot more introspective than we've seen the character before. And I personally think that Zack Snyder has an amazing eye for visuals as well as action, and the character of Superman provides him a great playground to provide a bunch of moments that are just fun to see. With the score, the themes, the ideas, the performances, it's exciting when it's supposed to be exciting, and it's powerful when it's supposed to be emotional. With 5 years to reflect on the film, it is my favorite of the DCEU films. Remember to check out that playlist to the left with my other DCEU rankings. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.